is that we have now got the governor interested. We should hear something by Friday. The governor has been talking with his staff and talking with the Illinois Environmental Council about getting background information and trying to find out more about this. Also, I've been in contact with Senator Durbin's office. I've had conversations and emails back and forth. They're also collecting and gathering information. Hopefully I'll have more information by the end of the week. So this outreach, this community grassroots kind of work is making our politicians pay attention. And so please keep that up. I think that's one of the most powerful things that everyone here can do. So we get so many calls and emails and letters each day. What can we do? What can we do? And I had a phone interview with Joan Esposito this evening on her show at 5:30. And she, while we were doing the break, she took a look at the Save Belleville Prairie webpage. And I told her that that webpage had been created by some of our volunteers, not our volunteers, but the volunteers for this effort. It wasn't an NLI effort. And she said it was one of the best web pages she had ever seen. She said this on the radio show. It was so easy to get in there and take a look at what you can do and all the background information. So she was very impressed with the webpage. So thank you so much to all the people who have been participating in this effort and putting together this whole groundswell. So that's all I have on that part.
All right, thank you very much, Carrie, for that information. Are we able to go to Laura Stamp on Zoom and have her talk to us about what she's been coordinating related to political action?
I'm going to ask to unmute Laura.
Hi, everybody.
Stamp.
So basically
She
what
should
I've been
be-
doing, can you hear me okay?
Okay, now we can.
Okay. Basically what I've been doing is I have compiled the phone numbers and phone numbers and social media tags for different people who are part of are the decision makers. So today was Governor Pritzker. Tomorrow, and there were phone numbers and tags, and that was all published on the Belleville Facebook page. So tomorrow is the reaching out to state.
Oh, she's frozen.
Senator, Fish and Wildlife, and the FAA. So every day, just check the Facebook page. I've tried to make it really, really bold and graphic so that you can see it right away. As soon as you make the phone call, if you can chime in, if you have any hints for us, if you have other phone numbers that you think we should share. But I think it's calling and tagging are the best ways to get through to people. I know that Governor Pritzker was like, when I started my call today and I kind of went on to it, she just cut me off. She said, "Are you for saving the prairie?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Thank you." So working.
Thank you, Laura. And also this information is on the SaveBellevillePrairie.org website, right? So if you're not on Facebook, you can also get the information off that website of who to call, when to call, and that kind of information. Okay, thank you, Laura. All right, next we're going to move on to Clay Bold, who is also on Zoom, and he's going to give us a recap of or explanation of the ecological importance of Belleville Prairie. So Clay, I know I see his name at the top.
He wants to share, so.
Unmute him. Oh, we can't hear you yet, Clay.
We have to ask Clay to unmute and then he'll be able to.
Okay, I'm good. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen once, if I can do that.
Share.
As soon as I can get permission, I'll jump on that on my presentation.
Thanks, Clay. We're just getting through this.
Gotcha.
I think Clay will ask to share content. Is that right, Clay?
Yeah, I have a PowerPoint.
Okay, and you'll ask to share it?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a button you can use to ask to share it?
It just basically says host disabled participant to screen share.
But it'll make him a host if you
Okay,
like want him to share it.
okay, yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
And then make a host,
Make host.
like in the middle.
Make him a co-host, right? Make a host.
Yep.
We can't have a co-host.
Make him a
Well-
host for now.
Okay, then Clay, you're gonna be the host for a while. Buddy.
All right. I'm in the driver's seat. All right, here we go. I promise my presentation is very PG. Can everybody see my presentation okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm going to jump right in. Hi, everyone. My name is Clay Bolt. I'm a conservation and natural history photographer based out of Livingston, Montana. I was very involved, along with the Xerces Society, for listing the rusty patch bumblebee on the endangered species list. And this project is something that's very near and dear to my heart because every bit of prairie that this species exists in, at least as far as I'm concerned, is critical habitat. But I thought I'd use this opportunity to just tell you over the next few minutes or so a little bit about the background about the rusty patch bumblebee, and again, why it's so critically important to protect Bell Bowl, not just for the rusty patch, but certainly one of the good reasons to protect it. As many of you guys know, a lot of studies have been coming out over the last few years that talks about the decline of insects, and the numbers are pretty dire. The situation is pretty terrible in terms of what scientists are finding in terms of decline of insects. A study came out a year and a half or so ago that estimates that in the next few decades, as much as 40% of the world's insects may go extinct. And those primary factors read like a laundry list of things that you might expect, including habitat loss, primarily from intensive agriculture, as well as pesticide usage. Now, I work for WWF, and we have a report that comes out every year called the Plow Report. And we estimate that since 2009, 33 million acres of grasslands across the US and Canadian portions of the Great Plains were plowed up primarily for row crop agriculture. And in 2019, in that year alone, 2.6 million acres of grasslands were plowed up, which is an area larger than Yellowstone National Park lost in a single year. So you can imagine that in addition to how that impacts the plants that live there, species such as bees are being impacted greatly. And the only areas that studies show where insect numbers are increasing are areas where agriculture has been abandoned. Now, my specialty are bumblebees. And worldwide, we have 250 species of bumblebee, 250 known species. We're finding new species all the time, especially through genetic analysis. And in the US and Canada, we have 45 known species. But unfortunately, 1 out of every 4 bumblebees are thought to be extinct in North America, according to a study from the IUCN's Bumblebee Specialist Group, which is obviously terrible news. Earlier this year, Franklin's bumblebee, a close relative of the rusty patch bumblebee, was listed on the endangered species list. But unfortunately, it may be too late. This is a species that has not been seen since 2006. And it is a species that's being impacted for many of the same reasons that Bombus affinis is being, or the rusty patch is being impacted. And, you know, this species probably, it could still exist, and I'm certainly hopeful that it does. But unfortunately, Bombus affinis and many other species are declining rapidly. They may not be around in the future if we don't do something. The western bumblebee, another close relative of the rusty patched, which was very common in the West up to a few years ago, is now only found in a few isolated pockets. And it's another species that's been proposed for listing on the endangered species list, as well as the American bumblebee, another species that I feel certain probably finds its way to Bell Bowl now and then, or maybe even nest there as well. These are species that were once incredibly common, but because of these factors that I listed earlier, they're going extinct. Bumblebees are such incredible, important pollinators. They're some of our most valuable pollinators because, and they're generalist pollinators, which means that they visit lots of different types of plants. In addition, they're able to do some things that other bees can't do. For example, they use a technique called sonication or buzz pollination, where they vibrate their flight muscles at the note of a middle C which causes pollen to fall from the flowers of things like blueberries, cranberries, tomatoes. But they're also, I consider them to have superpowers in that they're able to warm their body temperatures and fly during cold temperatures that other bees can't do. So for example, in the morning, if it's a really frosty morning on the prairie, honeybees are still in the hive, whereas bumblebees are able to get out and fly in those early morning temperatures. They're just really amazing insects. And the thing I love about bumblebees and the thing I like to tell people about bumblebees is that they're pretty adaptable. If you give them half a chance, if you allow them to have places to live, food to eat, shelter, they will survive in major cities, in places like this airport. You know, they can survive if you just give them half a chance. They're found in harsh environments like coastal areas and even in high altitude prairie and mountains. They actually fly as high as 11,000 feet above sea level in very cold places where you would consider it to be a tundra environment. In fact, bumblebees are found all the way from the Arctic all the way down to the tip of South America in these very harsh places. So around 2013, I began to get interested in the rusty patch bumblebee. I wasn't really familiar with the species, although I probably grew up right next to them. But I was doing a project in Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and the park entomologist Becky Nichols showed me a specimen of a rusty patch and told me that in spite of searching for the bee over a number of years, the bee had not been seen in the park for quite some time. And that really got me wondering what I could do as a photographer to help raise awareness. At that time, the Xerces Society had filed a petition to ask the Fish and Wildlife Service to list this species on the endangered species list. And as the process works, once a petitioner files a petition, the Fish and Wildlife Service is supposed to get back to the petitioner within 90 days. But around that time, it had been nearly 900 days since the petition had been filed. And so I decided that I would do something to try to help. It just didn't seem right to me that the only representation we may have of this species was a dusty species in a museum collection. I wanted to see this species living and thriving into the future. And so I made it my mission to dedicate as much time as possible to helping this precious, precious animal. Historically, the rusty patch bumblebee was found across much of eastern North America, west to the eastern border of Nebraska and the Dakotas. But over 15 years, ironically, in alignment around the time that neonicotinoids were released into public use, the species declined nearly 90%, so that its stronghold was found in the upper Midwest in places like Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois. And there were some remnant populations found as well in Virginia. Ty Ralston, a biologist with the University of Virginia, found a single specimen of a rusty patch bumblebee in Sky Meadows, but after much searching was not able to find any more. However, Ty's discovery led other people to begin to search for the bee, and pockets were found in West Virginia and Virginia. And this is so important because for two reasons. One reason is that these pockets seem to have some resistance to some of the factors that are harming this species. And two, the other important part of it is that this bee, because they were able to find populations, stood in the way of the development of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, ultimately leading to the cancellation in a true David and Goliath story. So never doubt that a bee can stand in the way of things that harm nature. And I applaud you all so much for your advocacy of the species in this prairie. And as I mentioned, it doesn't need to have a pristine habitat to survive. It simply needs a place with abundant floral resources, food. It needs shelter. It needs a pesticide-free environment, and it can thrive. And I would encourage those folks at the airport to consider that this species, the fact that it can live there at the airport, to be something that they should be very proud of instead of thinking about wiping it away. This could be a crown jewel at the airport, that they do have habitat for this precious endangered species rather than wiping it away. And I think it's absurd to think that this species would not overwinter, would not nest in this prairie, just as it's done for thousands and thousands of years, prior most likely to the arrival of humans in this area, well before it was called Belleville Prairie, well before the airport was built. And the least we can do is provide a chance for it to continue to live there into the future. I would also say that advocacy is so incredibly important and that advocacy does make a huge difference. So one of the tools that we use to help place the species on the endangered species list is partners and I work with Xerces to develop a film called A Ghost in the Making, which we presented all over the country, including in a congressional briefing on Capitol Hill to speak up for the species. And during that process, we came across Dr. Sydney Cameron at the University of Illinois. And she and her team did some work to discover that one of the things impacting many of the bees that are going extinct is a disease called Nosema bombi, which is a gut pathogen that impacts the bees in several ways, including causing memory issues, making it difficult for them to reproduce, and causing lethargy. It really impacts the species. And this is being spread in part through the commercial bumblebee industry, where bees are being bred for pollination for things like greenhouse tomatoes. Those bees are bred to be more docile. They're bred in close proximity with one another. And once they're in these greenhouses, they can escape and spread and intermingle with the wild bees. The reason I bring this up is that, I think in addition to the fact that every bit of habitat that this bee has is important, I would say that there could well be something in the genetic population of these bees at the airport that allows them to survive in the face of this disease. They could be the link that other populations need as the species is people try to recover the species. So every little population matters. And as many of you guys know, currently the NRDC is in a lawsuit with the Fish and Wildlife Service to push the service to designate critical habitat for the rusty patch bumblebee. And again, I would argue that this area is critical habitat because the bee does survive and live there still to this day. And I would just leave you guys with this quote, which I hope would inspire you as much as it inspires me, from Rachel Carson in Silent Spring, that who has decided, who has the right to decide for the countless legions of people who were not consulted, that the supreme value is a world without insects, even though it be also a sterile world ungraced by the curving wing of a bird in flight. Keep up the great work, everybody. I'm so inspired by all of your efforts.
Thank you, Clay. That was really, really interesting. Do we have any questions for Clay right now before we move on? Okay, any questions on Zoom?
I have a question.
Oh, okay.
Is that film, The Ghost in the Making, available publicly anywhere?
Absolutely. I'll put it in the chat, but it's rustypatch.com.
Okay, thank you.
Friday night, we're gonna show that film Friday night at the Nordoff Center.
Okay, I'm a professor too, so I want to show it to my class.
All right, so Jennifer said that we're showing that film on Friday night at the Nordloff Center in Rockford, and she's going to talk about that more later in the meeting. Great, thank you. Okay. All right, well then I think we'll move on, and I'm going to invite Carrie. Thank you very much, Clay. That was very, very interesting, and thank you for your
I got a
time.
quick comment.
Oh,
Okay, just to your point that these insects are hardier than we think. A friend of mine in Pleasant Prairie or Kenosha, Wisconsin, Pam Holley, she runs the Chilwaukee Prairie Preservation Foundation. She has a spectacular wildflower garden, and I'm a professor as well, and I brought my class to her garden, and we found the rusty patch bumblebee in her garden in Kenosha. All right, so these little pieces are very important, extremely important. And we're talking a garden not even bigger than where these chairs are right here. But it had the right kind of flowers, and several bees there, rusty patch.
I found in my house here in Rockford.
Yeah, so these things, give them a chance and they'll respond.
yeah, that's a good point. Good reason to have native habitat in your own backyard. All right, thank you for those comments. Carrie, do you want to come up and talk about changing the story, airport and Prairie, a recap of our alternative design proposal?
So we talked at our last two meetings about the purpose of having a win-win situation for the airport. Because we believe that with sensitive green infrastructure, conservation design, we can alter the footprint of the building and use certain stormwater management practices to actually have both the airport expansion and save the prairie. This is not something new. This is something that's been done all over the country with people who have the will to do that and to save the prairie. And the airport, we thought at first maybe they didn't really understand what they had, but as I've been going through some of the documents and some of the historical stuff from when George Fell was trying to save the prairie several decades ago, the airport did understand the importance of the prairie. So I wrote in an op-ed on October 7th to the Rockford Register-Star that there are a number of creative design and local environmental groups and engineering groups who would be willing to sit down and talk with the airport. All of the parking lots could be designed with permeable paving and have the stormwater detention for the entire site potentially accommodated by oversizing the storage in the void spaces in the paving subbase. Lots of organizations are doing this all over the country. On-site landscape areas could be considered for rain gardens and bioswales instead of lawns, which would also provide infiltration and filter polluted runoff of the stormwater. Why not put some green roofs in to reduce the amount of runoff? Consideration should also be given to utilizing other opportunities to reduce the size and the dimensions of parking lots and roadways, which is one of the things that Domenica D'Alessandro proposed last week. I'm going to go over a couple of his concepts, and then he has something that he would like to add as well. So these types of green infrastructure and innovative site design approaches were broadly referenced in the Kishwaukee Corridor Green Infrastructure Plan that was published in 2012. And I think there were some copies of the executive summary on the back for you to take a look at. Also, Domenico D'Alessandro last week at the public meeting here presented an alternative design. It's a concept, it's an alternative concept. And we're not saying, oh, you have to do this design. It's just a way to think about it differently. And some major changes that Domenico was proposing was to replace the proposed 16 acres of employee parking lot with a parking garage. So when you think about it, that's a lot of snow plowing and a lot of polluted runoff coming off of 16 acres of an employee parking garage, parking lot. Why not make a parking garage with a much smaller footprint? Also, the employees would probably appreciate that because they don't have to park in the snow. Also, removing the 3 designed stormwater dry bottom management basins and treat the runoff with the new technology of porous paving and the use of underground cisterns, which we had originally suggested back at the beginning of October. This is actually being done in airports elsewhere in the world. And there is a guide available, published for airports, airport designed for them to be able to do this. So this plan that he proposed would actually be a more profitable choice because they could actually get more airplanes in their cargo space. So the message that we want to really get out there and for all the actions that we are doing is that we can save the 8,000-year-old ecosystem that should be treated as a regional, state, and national treasure. We can save it and we can have the airport expansion at the same time. So I'd like to hand it over to Domenico now. So I don't know if you want to unmute Domenico. Zach, can you unmute Domenico so he can present his comments on the plan?
I apologize.
we were talking about.
That's okay. Yeah, no, you want to go back to the plan slide.
I don't, how
No,
else?
I think it's DOMEN, or it's D'Alessandro, DA, yeah, D, just hit D, there it is, D'Alessandro.
Oh, there he is now.
So now you can unmute Domenico.
Hey, Carrie,
Yeah,
can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm on a laptop with Suzanne. I was on my desktop, but when the accident happened, I was not able to get back on. I had hoped that I could share my screen because there are a couple of things that I would like to add to this plan. But as of now, I'm unable to access. I can't get back into the meeting.
oh, so we can only just hear you, not see you, is that right?
You can hear me, but I really had the images that I wanted to show because they're so clear. But anyway, I just want to add that not only are we providing that area for better use, but also by moving their design, we actually create space for them to add an extra building. You know where they have midfield building 1 and midfield building 2? Those are the buildings that service the big jumbo aircraft. Well, they can add another one now because that space has been liberated from the previous plan. So not only are we providing more aircraft space for them with the alternative, but it liberates space for them to add to their second phase of expansion. Also, I think we really have to look at the south end, you know, where that white area is, just west of the main prairie, that where it's blank right now, right west of the, east of the main structure, right there, yeah. That road that they're proposing has no purpose for this phase of the project. It has no purpose whatsoever for this phase of the project. It is a road that is meant, and I'm convinced of this, it is meant to liberate that area so that they can come in with a third expansion later on that will occupy that southeast area. I am convinced of that because I was racking my mind, why are they building this road? It doesn't serve this phase of the project. It doesn't even serve the second phase of the project because alternatives can be found for that, but they really need it if they want to propose a third phase, which is occupying the rest of that space at the east-south end. So I think we have a legal argument here that that road, since it does not service this expansion and it does not service the second expansion, that it should be strictly tied to the third phase, which they have not announced yet. It's a mystery. So if it's tied to that, then they should not be able to build it because it's not of any use. And if it's tied to that, we don't know when that third phase might happen. We don't know if phase 1 and 2 are enough to service all the packages and all the material that can come into this region. That third phase might happen in 10, 15, maybe 50 years from now. So that road is completely useless unless they want to build that third phase, which they have not announced that there's nothing on it. But that's the only reason that I have for that I can see for that road to actually exist.
Any questions for Domenico?
Thank you, Domenico. Did you have anything else? Because you cut out. We weren't sure if you stopped talking or you got muted.
Well, I think that's all I wanted to say. Unfortunately, the images would have really helped. But I don't know why I can't get in again. It's just not letting me in.
Well, thank you for trying and thank you for explaining. I think that we can visualize that with the way you explained it. And maybe you can send us those slides and we can put them up on the website so people have a
Right, yeah.
chance to view
Yeah,
them.
I can do that, but I just wanted to mention that because I think the priority here is to stop the bulldozers from moving on November 1st.
Yes.
And we have to make sure that whoever can stop this, whether it's Governor Pritzker or someone really high up, has all the information they need. Because like I said, this road cannot be tied to this phase. It is absolutely unnecessary for this phase of the construction.
Okay, thank you, Domenico. Does anyone have questions for him? Okay, I see a hand raised in the back. Can you take your mask down and stand up?
Yeah, Domenico, I'm not sure you know the answer to this. Who is it that has the contract for building the road?
Did you hear that question?
I have, yeah, I have no information whatsoever on this project. And
Huh?
Klinger and Ted.
Oh, really?
Excavating,
So who-
yeah. So it's,
Who did you say? I didn't hear that.
Sue Merchant wrote a letter to him.
Okay, while she's
I
looking,
gotta look it up, I got it on my phone.
okay,
Let's talk about something else.
all right. Any other questions while she's looking that up?
So,
The name of the contractor was the question.
yeah, who's the excavator?
Who's the excavator?
So it-
Okay,
is there somebody else?
And the paper, have they shown?
It shows it on the screen, one. One.
She wants us to see a visual.
Okay.
I'm sorry, what?
Visual. His name is Wayne Klinger.
Wayne,
Northern Illinois Services.
Wayne Klinger, Northern Illinois
He's
Services.
at 4781 Sandy Hollow Road.
Okay, and is he just doing the excavation or is he
Yeah,
doing the
yeah.
paving?
So that's the excavation contractor.
Okay, so who is it that's been contracted to do the paving?
Does anyone know who's been contracted to do the paving?
The name of that company again, sorry, I don't,
Northern Illinois Services.
the airport has a $1.3 million contract with them for
Wayne Klinger.
this project.
And,
It's in their minutes on the board, on the.
okay, so who is it who's doing the paving?
The question now is who's doing the paving? And we don't know
Robert has
that.
an addiction to pavement over anything else. So,
Well,
lots
that's
of
what it
hand
is, person.
and in glove stuff with the paving contract.
Okay.
Curious.
Thank you for those comments. One other suggestion was made to Domenico, if you could email those slides to
Amy.
Amy.
I can get them into the.
And Domenico, you have Amy's email address, and then we could probably put them up on the screen in a few minutes. Meanwhile, we're going to move on. According to the agenda, action items is next, but we're going to hold those until later, because right now I would like to go to some events that are coming up. We're gonna move into a new section of our meeting, talking about some events coming up. Oh, I see a hand raised.
I have a question. You know, we're all convinced there are other options for the airport, but how do we get the airport to listen to any of this? Because they have none.
The question is, how do we get the airport to listen to all the information that's been presented to them, right?
Yeah, 3 days.
I don't know. That's a good question. Does anybody have an answer? I don't have an answer.
Yeah.
Okay, I see a hand raised in the back. Can you stand up and take your mask down? And speak loudly?
Yeah, the only thing I can think of right now, since you're time crunch, is start calling the aldermen, because they're the ones that appoint the board.
start calling the aldermen of Rockford is what you mean, right? Because they're appoint the board to the airport board. They have 3 appointees, commissioners.
No, that's not true.
That's not true.
That's not true.
No. Well,
That's not true.
what's not true?
It's the mayor's.
The mayor is the one that appoints, but I believe the council would have to approve appointees to boards. Okay, I see Jim.
Alderwoman Prunty is the alderwoman that covers the whole airport area. I talked to her today and she did not know all the subtleties of this, didn't know about the Prairie, didn't understand this. She said she was going to talk to the mayor. The mayor is very careful about this, but he appoints 3 of the commissioners. And the latest one was Mike Shablaski, and I talked to him, and he didn't seem to understand the whole process either. And he felt like he has to learn more about this. And he felt like he'd been kept in the dark as well.
Okay, thank you for sharing that information, Jim. So Jim said that he had talked to April Prunty, who's the alderwoman for the airport area, and then also Mike Shablaski, who's a board commissioner for the airport. And he's trying to learn about the whole process and what's been going on with it. Okay.
Can you also share that we sent packets hand delivered?
Yes, another thing that we did, we delivered packets to the airport board, including Executive Director Michael Dunn last Friday, and 3 of the airport board members received them there. That was Mr. Shablaski, Mr. Del Santo, and Mr. Myers. And then we hand delivered packets of information to Ms. West, Mr. Cicero, Mr. Agnew, and the other one, I can't, who?
Tanya.
Oh, okay, Ms. Lamia, to her place of work. So those board members received packets with Domenico's slides and then Jack White's paper on Belleville, Prairie, and Greater Rockford Airport, and also the green infrastructure summary for Kishwaukee River Corridor. And then for the commissioners, we also, and Michael Dunn, we also gave them the book Force of Nature and pointed out to page 28 that George Fell and his father both had worked to save Belleville, Prairie. Now, in addition to that, we delivered I don't know, about 27 or 28 more packets to the alderman, the mayor of Rockford, the alderman of Rockford, mayor of Les Park and McChesney Park, Representative West, Representative Bella, Senator Stottleman, and let's see. Who? Severson, yes, thank you. I knew there were 3 that went to the State of Illinois building. And then we also delivered to Sherry Bustos' office in Rockford, and then we mailed to Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth, and also the governor's office. So they all received packets last Friday, except the 3 that were mailed to Chicago and Springfield. And Judy, you have a question?
Yeah, why did you not send any to the county board because they appoint 3 people?
We did send one to County Board Chairman Chirelli, so 1 went to him. Thank you. I forgot that one. There were 35 packets that we sent out. Okay, Allison.
Yeah, so then after a couple of days, are you going to call them and say, what did you think of the packets? Have you had a chance to study them?
Well, we did actually receive confirmation from Mr. West tonight that he, just based on his email, I'm going to say that he saw that and received it. And Commissioner West, Leslie West from the airport, acknowledged that she received it. And we also have talked to the mayor of Rockford, and he has received that information. And then, so we haven't made calls yet to other people because we just haven't.
I'm going to propose that that's essential.
Okay.
Follow up.
Thank you. All right. Good idea. If anybody's willing to help make those phone calls, that would be very helpful because we don't have enough people to do that. So let me know after the meeting if you can help make phone calls to those people that we delivered to. Okay, now I want to ask, okay, so we've all been working towards Thursday at 5 o'clock attending the airport board meeting, but that has been canceled as of today. So the airport board meeting on Thursday at 5 o'clock has been canceled. Meanwhile, there have been a group of people working to plan a rally to meet in the parking lot at the airport board office for their board meeting and then attend the board meeting at 5 o'clock. And at this time, I'm going to ask David Stocker. Where did he go?
The stuff is still.
Oh, I ran out of the room. This is like, some of my visual aids.
That's his old trick. He always leaves.
Get up there, so you're on. Over there.
Come up
Okay.
here. I'll move.
All right, I'm mad as hell. Where can I be?
There you are, that's good.
That's
Or
pretty
you can
obvious.
carry it or.
Jesse, will you join me up here for a minute? There may be some things to fill in. So, my thought is that we have a precious little amount of time to make an impact, and that anything we can do to get our message in front of the media at this point is good, and different people will ponder different strategies. Brad brought a great book. If you want the table of contents from that book, look up 198 methods of nonviolent direct action by Gene Sharp, the Einstein Foundation. That's all on the internet. And you can see a list of things that you can do, including artwork, mock funerals, ceremony in the absence of people you wish were there. You present an award to somebody who's not there. You present awards to yourself. You march, you protest, all of that is there. Letter writing, even some of the items on that list of 198, you'd be surprised how many are actions that have been taken against our effectiveness, delay, cancellation of meetings. And so
And the porno piece.
Gene Sharp didn't talk about that one. And he also codified his methodologies before virtual events were possible. So I think there's new ideas to go there. I'm really moved by everything that's been said and all the research. I'm sort of at the street theater end of it. So working on signage. I think we just posted on the Bell Bowl. Is this upside down or right side up? Oh my gosh, my friend Jesse and I are gonna hold this thing up here. So this we photographed at the airport this afternoon. Well, oh yes, delay and passive obstruction. One of the people with us was talking with the security guard while we unfolded this in a couple of places and took some photographs of it. I think the idea is that we are so few. If a picture gets on the internet and 10,000 people see it because there's that many people watching what's going on here, then that makes an impact. For us gathered, this helps us not be sad or frightened, and that we can be together and use our creativity. This is not the creativity that Domenico is bringing to this project, but it's on the continuum for it that we are adapting, we're being creative, and there are some events. So what I know is that the board authority had canceled their Thursday meeting. So we're still planning on having a rally at the airport. And I'm not a coordinator of it. Some people ask me, I don't have a organization behind me, but I have friends who are willing to show up. So I think it's a horizontal effort. And I applaud all of those who are planning and thinking of things to do and to be seen. I'll just lay this down. If anybody wants to know how to mark out a milk bottle and make your own Bumble hat, then I'll pass this around, pass that around, look at that. Thursday's event was meant to deliver speakers and have people outside to create energy, a certain imperative to listen because the people showed up. So they've taken that away from us. But we will, as I said, have a ceremony to an empty chair there. That's also on the list of 198 strategies. And I'd like to present personally the keys to the city. It'll be made of tinfoil and coat hanger, but to some of the heroes of the last few months, the people who raised the alarm, people who have actually stepped into challenging circumstances where maybe their donors don't want them to be speaking in the way that they're speaking. This is painful in the community. So I would like to I think we'd like to honor those people. Some of that will take place Thursday. There's also a march that's being planned on Saturday. Do you know about that?
No.
What time?
That's coming up
That's coming
in a
up. We
minute.
got that.
Okay.
Thursday, what time?
Yeah.
So Thursday at 4:15, we're still planning on meeting at 60 Airport Drive at the Airport Authority. Even though they're chickening out and not going to meet us and have a conversation about why this is so important to so many people, we're still gonna show up. It looks like it's going to be a rainy day. So even more reason to show up and show them that we are still there standing up for the Prairie, even if they're unwilling to meet us in conversation. So we're hoping that we'll get a big turnout of people to send the message that we're not giving up, we're not backing it down. This is important.
And do you have the media coming?
There has been a media alert that has gone out. Thank you to Kim. And, but if anyone has contacts with media, local media, it does not hurt to give, an extra call, an extra email, tweet the local media, make sure that they know about it, that they're willing to come out and highlight it. Also, bring your phone, do Facebook Lives, that kind of thing to get the word out, just horizontally outside of the mainstream media.
Did anybody call media about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Media is here.
Yes, we did.
But then they were taking the elevator to go upstairs.
They were here for a while and then she had to leave, but we did send out a media alert about the meeting tonight and the event on Thursday.
The board members don't have anything that they have to do during that time. They might want to come. And if we can have them come and support what we're doing, it's not about the board, it's about those individual people. Like I know Mike Strablowski. I've had a wonderful history of working with him around the issue of equity with the big thing that he started, what, 10 years ago.
So if you have a relationship, definitely reach out to him, invite him, say that we want to have a conversation about
If we
this.
can have them there, and some of those board members there, if they're willing to.
Be awesome if Mike showed up with his transformative power, wouldn't it? I would love that personally.
All right, thank you very much. And David and Jesse, and then thank you, Juan Pablo, for being here tonight. And he's already covered several stories for us throughout the last month about this issue. So thank you for continuing to cover this. Now Jennifer Corona is going to come up and talk about a couple of other events this week.
So on Friday night at the Nordhoff Center at 6:30, we will be showing Clay Bolt's film, A Ghost in the Making, about the Rusty Patch Bumblebee. There's also an additional film that we'll show after that, and I actually don't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
It's on your slide. One more slide.
One more slide.
What was that time again?
6:30 p.m. at the Nordhoff Center. And then Bumblebee is The Secret World of Bees. So if you would like to show up at 6:30, we will be doing that. It's, everyone knows where the Nordhoff Center is, right? Downtown. No, it is.
It's at 118 North Main Street.
Address is on the slide too. But it's next to Octane. It's next to some of those J.R. Cortman's, if you're familiar with that downtown area. And then on Saturday from noon to 2 p.m., also at the Nordhoff Center, we'll be gathering there. We'll have some speakers. We invite anyone who's written poetry to come and read their poems about Belleville Prairie. There'll be some musicians, and more details about that will be coming out. And then at 2 p.m., we will be taking a walk on the sidewalks of the city, since we did not have time to get a permit, and there will be a march. So if you'd like to join us for that, we would very welcome you to come to those two events. Any questions? Yes.
When do you think the march is going to be at?
At 2 p.m. Other questions or comments? Any questions in the chat? If you meet at the Nordhoff Center at 2 p.m., we'll be right there.
This one here.
Oh, this is on your site, right?
It should be on there later if it's not there now.
Okay.
You're welcome. Okay, we're gonna have Amy come up next and talk about action items. Some of them we've already talked about. She'll recap the action items and then we have a couple more announcements to make. And she is helping Zoom right now, so here she comes.
We do have Domenico's slide that got emailed to me. We're trying to figure out where it is in the presentation, but we'll get to Domenico.
Okay, great.
All right, so I'm chatting a little bit about the action items, and I think there've been a lot of suggestions, and we hope that everyone continues to follow up on those suggestions. But the first thing that is the action item that you can all do is continue to show up. I think we've talked about events. Show up on Thursday night, show up on Friday night, and show up on Saturday. When we continue to show up and to invite our friends and to tell our neighbors, those conversations are really important. So we need to continue to have those conversations and have them on Zoom and have them on Facebook, but having them in person is really, really valuable. So, all right, they're looking for our slides. So your sheet, if you picked up an agenda when you walked in, then it's got action items that you can take. These haven't changed that much. We've added some things that you can show up to, but the things that you can continue to do, call, right, letters, you guys want to pull up the slide?
Is this it?
Nope, that's not it.
Okay. It seems like we.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Oh,
That
that's
is it.
Okay, so we should share. We should share it.
Yeah, but we'll go back to that because unless you wanted to pull Domenico up.
We should do that too. Should we do that?
We'll talk about the action items and then we'll have Domenico. How about I finish the action items and then we'll have Domenico share. So that's Domenico's slide. We'll come back to it. So go ahead and go forward. All right, so we talked about showing up and then go to the next one. All right, so we talked about this, but there are social media posts there. It's on the website, action items. We've been doing a phone blitz this week. Hopefully you've been participating. If not, you have catching up to do. So now you need to make, if you haven't already made your calls for Monday and Tuesday, then tomorrow you need to make the Monday calls, the Tuesday calls, and the Wednesday calls. So on Monday, phone calls were made to the Rockford Airport and the airport board. Today was about calling Governor Pritzker and calling his office. Tomorrow is about calling the state legislators. Even if you've already called, keep calling. It does make a difference. People are talking about this. They're talking to their staffs. It makes a difference that 6,000 people have filled out the IEC alert and that people are paying attention to what's going on in here in Rockford. And so we need to keep making those calls. So tomorrow is call the state legislators. There's information. It'll be posted on social media and on the website about kind of a script of what to say and those phone numbers. So they're there. All right, one more slide. We talked last week again about sending a telegram. Send a telegram because it puts it in historical context. It was this prairie was saved with a telegram and George fell many years ago. So send a telegram. Share the story with your media contacts. You know who to talk to. You have friends, neighbors, you have contacts in the world. Continue to share this story. We've talked about there are connections and people who just don't know. We all think it's crazy that people may not know what's going on, but we're part of the story. We're following this. There are many people that you encounter every day that don't know what's going on at Belleville Prairie. It's important that we continue to tell the story. Share the story with your students, your school contacts. I heard there's some people in here that teach. Make sure that story is getting told. Continue to create the social media and put it out there. I have been amazed at the number of things that have popped up in the last 24 to 48 hours. Continue to share those things. Share the news on Nextdoor platform, other places to share it. Continue to share. Just continue to tell the story. And then we continue to talk about sharing it with your friends and neighbors, have those conversations. The back of your agenda has some talking points. If you're not sure how to tell the story, pull up the talking points and review it with them. Share many of the resources. The media has been covering that. Share those stories with people as well. So now if you can, let's go back to Domenico's slide. And we're going to ask if Domenico wants to unmute again and explain his slide one more time. And thank you for your patience with the technical challenges of this evening. So.
How do we spell his name again?
D'Alessandro, just
Oh,
with
there it is.
D.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yes, sir.
Now you're gonna pull the slides back up.
Yep.
Sorry, guys.
Got that. It's a share. Thank you very much.
Can the slide be, okay.
Yeah, well, they're working on it.
Oh, thank you very much.
There we go.
Okay,
I got a coach
so,
here.
so this, I think, makes it clear what I was talking about. So the development that we're proposing is shown on I guess, your left. And by doing that, we can actually allow them to build out another building. See at the top right-hand corner. So they have two buildings proposed. So that purple area, that is available to them now, which was not available to them with their phase, their proposal. So that means that they can also add another building and service maybe 2 or 3 more of those big jumbo-sized planes. And the road that goes through the Prairie has nothing to do with the first phase project or the second phase project, which is I'm assuming the upper cargo buildings 1 and 2. But it is all to do with what can happen down at the corner where I have the question mark. Because that road that goes through the Prairie will replace the road that is now being used to go to those parking lots. So that road will replace that road. So it got me thinking, why would they want to replace a perfectly good road? The only answer I can come up with is that by adding that road, they free up the access to the back and will make all this land that I demarcated in red available for future development. They might have already designed this. And in fact, I'm pretty sure they have. I think they've designed the whole site and they're just proposing a piece at a time, for us to grapple with. Their design that they are proposing, they placed that design on the aerial in 2016. I'm positive of that. Why do I know that? Because in 2015, that parking lot adjacent to the Prairie, just at the top there, right above the, where the yellow line goes through, right next to the Prairie. Yeah, that parking lot was not there in 2015. And then in 2016, they built those white buildings that you see there adjacent to the parking lot. So that was 2016 construction. I don't know, maybe they wanted to celebrate Trump's election. But anyway, that tells me that their aim is to expand southward and cover that whole area with other buildings and services. So we may not be able to stop that, I don't know, but that road goes through the Prairie, must be tied. We must tie that road to the third phase development because we don't know when that's going to happen. We don't even know if it's going to happen. If we manage to tie that road to that development, then we can say, well, that is really necessary for the third phase. Therefore, you don't need to build it now. Let the Prairie stay until that phase is debated. Because right now that road serves absolutely nothing. They do not have the second development built. And it has no use for the first phase of this expansion.
Okay, thank you, Domenico. Are there any questions for him at this point?
I've been told that there are questions in the chat, and I'm
Okay.
wondering if we should look at those now.
Sure. Zoom chat, let's see, what do we have? Once they found a Bumblebee, it seems there should now be a new EA environmental assessment, and maybe to Suzanne's point, the 2019 one is too old anyway. Does anybody have a response to that?
We did. Carrie, should we?
No.
Okay.
Okay. So we don't know that there is a new environmental assessment going on, right?
Well, we do know that there isn't.
There is not one happening. Yes, I think some of us believe there should be, but there is not one happening. Okay, next question. What is the difference in cost with the alternative plan versus theirs? Domenico, can you answer that?
Okay, so the upfront costs are more because we are asking for a parking garage and we are asking for porous paving. But that cost can be recuperated over time. With their plan, with the 16-acre parking and the 3 stormwater management basins, that land will never produce. It will be expenses for the duration of the airport. And so they are losing money by not using the land for productive services. So if we are to say what are the upfront costs, the alternative will be a little more. But if we look at the life of the airport, the alternative will be much more profitable.
Okay, thank you for those comments. One question, does anyone at the top of this list here, does anyone know where there's documentation of rusty patch Bumblebee at the site? And it was done in August where they cited that. Was it the Illinois Department of Natural Resources that found that?
Yeah, that's true. And then the Illinois Natural History Survey.
Illinois Natural History Survey.
They contain those, may have those records on hand.
They would have those records, is what Zach is saying. Okay, let's see. Has anyone asked if Indigenous groups have been consulted about this? We have had a couple people reaching out to Indigenous peoples, but we have not had any response from them. We had a question in a meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago about Indian mounds on this particular area, and there are not. There are no Indian mounds on this site. Let's see, who will the graphic that Domenico shared along with their voiceover be shared with? Well, we'll definitely post it on our website, I guess, on Facebook, and then we can print it and mail it to the board. And who do you think we should share it with?
Okay, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Have we ever made a proposal to meet with Pritzker personally?
Yes.
Carrie said yes, we have.
And what was his answer?
We only have been talking through his office.
We've only
And
been.
I'm hoping to hear about something by Friday.
Because I think at this late stage, we have to really talk to him in detail what the differences are and making sure that he knows that the airport is not losing any services by going with the alternative. Because I'm sure the airport authorities are talking to him So I think we really need to focus on trying to meet in person.
That's what we're working on, Domenico, with
Okay.
with the IEC. Yeah, we are.
Yes, we've been working with Illinois Environmental Council to meet with Governor Pritzker.
So will Domenico be part of this discussion with Pritzker? I think it would be perfect if he was.
We can invite him.
Well, we have to get a meeting first.
We have to get the meeting first, right, Carrie said. So yes, we have been trying to get that meeting this week. Okay, so if somebody has a question about a TRO, which is a temporary restraining order, and suing the FAA, the Federal Aviation Association, to do the environmental impact statement over again. I'm not an attorney and I can't give legal advice, but I'm studying environmental law and I've learned that this has been done before. Carrie, do you want to?
No comment.
No comment at this time.
We are pursuing legal kind of consultation.
We are pursuing legal consultation is what Carrie said.
Do you feel optimistic about that, Carrie?
So someone asked if we feel, if she feels, if
I
Carrie
do,
feels
I feel
optimistic.
optimistic.
Yes, she feels optimistic about that. Okay, all of the Indian, let's see. Does the airport board's reluctance to reconsider the project have anything to do with the fact that the Illinois Public Airports Association recognized the Chicago Rockford International Airport's South Cargo Apron Construction Phase 1 project with an outstanding achievement award in September? Does anybody have an answer for that?
I don't know what their reluctance is.
So Carrie said, we don't know what the reluctance is. Why are they reluctant? Okay.
David, do you have something to add?
Oh, David, sorry. What do you have?
It seems to me like some of the awards that are being given are intended to be the nail in the coffin of any of our activism, because there's a celebration going on that this is already a done deal and that it's already happened. In fact, our mayor says flat out, it's a done deal. So those points about why are these awards happening right now, that's a counter strategy meant to take the energy out of any of our efforts to move forward. I had a question for Domenico, and it has to do, well, anybody. How we calculate, our current intervention that delayed it till November 1st caused immense economic distress to this plan. Last week, Domenico said they were planning on being operating with this facility by March, which meant they would be pouring cement now before the winter and constructing the building through the winter. Already, we are being, in their minds, being charged with the lost profit that would accrue to them as of March if they could have opened. That number has to be astronomical. So when we talk about the resistance that they have to even talk with us or speak with us or consider an alternative that has a shred of imagination and value added, all the things that we would like to see happen, this is why they won't talk with us. Any delay is going to cost them tens of millions of dollars.
David,
Thank you, David.
Can I just make one comment? Thank you for that comment. And it's important to remember that we weren't the only ones in this entire pickle, that the Bumblebee observations were made by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, and that put a stop to things, even though they had to go through IDNR consultation to get this project approved. So I don't think we're the only ones to necessarily blame in the situation on that front, but I don't see those costs as being lower than what we stand to lose by having these activities move forward. So thank you, and I just think it's important to remember what we're fighting for at this point.
Okay, thank you, David, and thank you, Zach. All right, let's see. We already answered that question. Okay, it looks like that might be it on all the questions on Zoom, or do you have any more?
I don't know how long you want to entertain questions. They'll probably continue.
Yeah, maybe we should let Carrie make her final.
Are we about done?
Domenico's plans were shared with the airport board and other elected officials. Okay,
So we have another announcement to make. Amy, did you share everything for action items?
We're all set. I think there should be a couple of last slides for Carrie and.
Yes. Okay, Carrie, please come up here now, and Zach or Bill will get the next slide for our next announcement.
I think it's.
There we go.
So we have a media advisory out, and we are inviting you all tomorrow at 11 a.m. in front of the Winnebago County Courthouse, northwest corner of South Church and Elm Street in downtown Rockford, to come to a press conference where we will be making an announcement to challenge the destruction of the Belleville Prairie in Rockford. There will be a live stream available for people on Facebook at the facebook.com/ILENVIRO. And I'm sorry, I can't take any more questions except bring your Save Belleville Prairie bee hats and your notices, your signs. They can be handmade, or your lawn signs. And I know it's last minute, but for those of you who can come, we really think you will enjoy it.
All right, thank you, Carrie. Just to wrap up, again, if you can come tomorrow to the news conference, that would be really appreciated, and we think you'll be happy to hear the news announcement that we'll be making there. At this time, are there any questions? Oh, I see a couple back here. Let's go with Jim and then Allison.
I'm curious about the part that's not on there, and that's the Sunday night, Monday morning. Let's say all of this gets a lot of attention, and I believe it will. However, we're coming down on Sunday night, Monday morning. Does anybody have a plan for that? Because that is the crunch time. That's when we're gonna find out serious we are. Is there a time, another meeting that's planned?
We don't have any meetings planned at this point. I'm sorry, Jim, I can't answer your question. We don't know. Tomorrow after the news conference, we might know more. Allison.
Yeah, there is something called Greentown Rockford, which is going to be a day-long conference on Friday, November 12th. Too late for us, but I'm wondering if we've contacted any of the people who are organizing it or who are speaking at it, because of course, being green and being sustainable goes along with what we're proposing. So,
yes.
So if the mayor or anyone else is enthusiastically participating in this Greentown thing, and yet engaging or advocating for environmental destruction, there's a little hypocrisy there. So
they have invited me to present on Belleville Prairie Fest.
Oh, good.
When's that? On the 12th.
Yeah, on the 12th, it might be too late, but I mean, perhaps we need to.
So earlier in at the beginning of the meeting, I made an announcement about it, and there's flyers on the table in the back about Greentown Rockford on November 12th. Carrie will be talking about Belleville Prairie at that conference. We do have others here tonight that will be at that conference, and they are very much aware of the Belleville Prairie issue. The organizer is on Zoom tonight, or he was. I saw him earlier. Yeah, so they're very much aware of it and supporting us with their own personal actions to contact legislators and elected officials and board members.
Who is the organizer?
Yeah.
Who was it that was on Zoom?
John Harris, the organizer of Greentown Rockford. John, I just called you out. Are you? I saw him earlier. Okay. Any other questions or comments to share before we end the meeting? Hi, Tyler. Welcome. Tyler Smith just entered the room from the side door.
Airport board meeting when I went up to the front door block.
Thank you, Tyler, for arriving. All right. Nice way to make an entrance. Okay, John, Shoba? Did I say that right? Shoba?
Yes, I wondered if the airport had alternative plans they looked at, and then they chose a certain one. Did they have some that they had that were like almost as good, but not quite?
Honestly, John, I don't know. His question is, did the airport have other plans that they looked at before they chose this particular one? I don't know if anybody has an answer.
Can you foil that? Probably have to
We
provide
do,
40 hours.
they do have alternative plans. They looked at it, was part of the EA. So if you look at the EA, if you go onto the Save Belleville Prairie website, it should be on there. And all they said in there that was they were not feasible. So we don't know why they were not feasible. We don't know if maybe something cost too much money or what it was, and we don't really have a lot of detail about those. We did do lots of FOIAs, but I don't think that's anything that we got was an answer to why any alternative plans were not feasible.
Okay. Yes, question in the back.
I'd like to throw a small wrench into the works. That small wrench is soil biota. I never see any mention of things like that, which I consider to be more important than even the rusty patch bumblebee and the rare plants. They're important, of course, but they're not all that unique. The prairie, these prairies of this nature are not just an assemblage of plants. If you took were to plant all species of plants that you have in this prairie in the right kind of soil, you will not get the same result as what you have at the main. And the difference is the soil biota, the mycorrhizae in particular, also soil bacteria, microarthropods, all the rest of it. That's the element that you can't recreate. That's what's unique about this. And there has been talk about the value of this prairie as a study site. And it would be all the more valuable as a study site for the mycorrhiza than for any other element in the prairie. And you have colleges here in Rockford, whether they have a mycorrhiza program, curriculum, I don't know. Probably not, because it's a fairly new thing. It's an expensive discipline, electron microscopy, DNA sampling equipment and all the rest of it. But it's a worldwide trend. I think the United States is behind on that particular study. But it's there to be studied, and that's the unique thing. So it's too late to talk to the airport authority about such things, I'm sure, as has already been pointed out. But it's not too late to talk to the media about it, because people, politicians and others do listen to the news and watch the TV and listen to the radio and so forth. So I would suggest adding that particular element to the mix.
Thank you. Those are the really good comments. He's talking about the uniqueness of the soil biota and microcosms of the soil and the importance. I'm not a biologist or an ecologist. So, okay. So does anybody have any response to that? I think that there has been some talk about that, but Zach is taking his mask off like he's going to talk.
The only thing I wanted to add to that is that that's something that we've been covering in the letters that we're writing to our representatives, especially to the regulatory agencies when we were contacting them. It's definitely something that we wanted to make clear. That's something that I think we all understand, is that there's building blocks there that have been developing for 8,000 to 10,000 years, and that they're irreplaceable, and that we don't know what we lose if this stuff gets excavated out of existence. It's like burning the library down and then trying to go check out books later on in the future.
Just to add a little bit, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
I would, as near as I can tell, the foremost authority on prairie mycorrhiza is a Professor Jim Beaver at University of Kansas at Lawrence campus. And I've heard him speak several times. Prairie mycorrhiza is his thing. And I asked him one time, how many species of prairie mycorrhiza there were. He had no idea. Nobody knows. That's how infantile, shall we say, the study is. And the reason that it hasn't been studied at length is because of economics. There's no economic benefit to prairie. So they think, well, of course.
Well, we do think that there's a lot of economic benefit to the
Well,
prairie, right?
But we believe.
Carbons.
The USDA doesn't believe so, or that's the problem. It's a new study, and people, mycorrhizologists, will tell you that soil is the last frontier. And we need places like that for study. Interestingly, Monsanto owns a prairie up near the Wisconsin border. There's no signs on it saying this is Monsanto property. But in my opinion, they own that for the simple reason that mycorrhizal agriculture is probably the future of agriculture. And they've ready replaced the study mycorrhiza.
Well, thank you very much for those comments. Those are very thought-provoking comments. Thank you. All right, any other last comments or questions? Okay.
Would it be fair to assume that should these plans not stop before Monday, there'll be information on the Facebook page about what we're doing like this weekend? Like you were
Yeah, okay, so you're talking about posting on Facebook, what our plans are. in the
Yeah, you
next
said there's
week.
not plans for another meeting, but if
Correct.
something pops up,
Yes, we will definitely post it on Facebook and the SaveValablePrairie.org website, as well as the naturalland.org website. And we'll send out an email to everybody that's on our email list too. So if you signed up, we'll get your name added to that list so that we can notify you of any upcoming meetings. The working group will have a conversation, a meeting tomorrow. We'll be talking about what our next steps are for future meetings. Because one of the goals, if we are able to protect the prairie and save it, is to then work towards making it a nature preserve, designating a nature preserve. So that's a really, really important goal that we're looking towards in the future. All right, one more question and then we'll go.
If you don't have anything on the Facebook page or the website about the mycorrhizal prairie soil,
Does somebody want to send us that information to post on there? You can send it to dmiller@naturalland.org. And then we'll get that information on our website and the Facebook page, the group Save Belleville Prairie, about the importance of the soil mycorrhiza. What is that word?
That's right, you said it.
Did I say-
Mycorrhiza.
Mycorrhiza. Okay, I learned a new word tonight. Thank you. Mycorrhizomes?
Mycorrhiza.
Mycorrhiza.
Yeah, it's very humbling to know that we know so little of the universe under our feet. That's
Soil,
what he's talking about.
yeah, I mean, soil is the next frontier was a really profound statement, I thought. And so, yes, I used to think soil was really my own personal boring, but now, over the years, I've learned how significant and important and diverse and incredible soil is. So thank you for that. All right, Dave, one more comment and then we have to go.
After the last meeting, I was a substitute at a school and some kids there knew about the meeting. Some were actually here at the meeting and they had questions for me. I've been trying to create an analogy that might equate somehow. And someone on our bus ride today mentioned, or somewhere earlier, if it were California, if there had been wildfires for generations, if there were 5 giant sequoias left, and it fell to Rockford to decide whether or not to cut one down for board feet to build an outhouse. I think that analogy might work. Does anybody else think that that is, I didn't say the outhouse part to the kids, but because that seemed ironic, but is that a fair analogy? Scientific people in the room, is that on the equation of the rarity of this prairie that we have?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
So these are our redwoods.
Yes.
And there's only 4 or 5 left. We're seeing our own future as human beings. We're there. Illinois is the place. It's this tiny ancient forest.
All right, okay, one more question and then we have to go. One more.
So we know who like the airport board members are, but do you know where they live?
We tried, a couple of us tried this week. We did not know where they live. We know where 4 of them work. And then the other 3, we couldn't find where they work or live, so.
I know where Steve Zadelman
Where-
Oh, okay.
But they have to file, like I have to file with the county. You know, you have to file a statement of economic interest. And on that, you have to list your home address.
Okay, if you know how to find that information, it would be helpful to, I don't know how to find that information. Does somebody know
It's
how
called a
to?
statement of economic interest.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
They should have all those on file for everybody that collects.
Okay, well, that's great. Anybody who's interested in helping us with finding that information, please come and talk to me after the meeting. Because I need help. All right. Thank you, everybody. The meeting is adjourned. Have a good night. Thank you. And come to the news conference tomorrow.